you strike me down, I shall become more powerful than you can possibly imagine.
Welcome back, everybody. It is another rule set guide. Today we are going to take a look at Back to the Basics, everybody's favorite rule set, right? I know a lot of people don't actually like this one, but it's actually fairly straightforward, and it does have a little less RNG than some of the other battles, which means you have to understand what you're doing, and if you play it correctly, you can actually increase your chances of winning. And that's what we all want to do, right? So let's make sure you guys are playing these battles correctly. Let's take a look at some of the strategies. It's pretty straightforward. It's basically like a logic puzzle. How much damage, health, and speed can you fit onto the battlefield given this set amount of mana? You do get abilities from your summoners, but other than that, the abilities are all gone. You don't have all these abilities interacting or causing all this chaos. So it's just line the cards up and let them knock each other out. So it's about having the best possible stats and making sure you put them in the best order. And the order is actually very, very important. So a lot of times you're going to, because you don't have any of these extra abilities, you're going to have your non-attackers or your melee up front. Then second, you're going to have your your magic. Oh my goodness, let's get this right. Let's start over. Melee first, magic second, and then range third. Why is that? Because magic can attack up front. So that's one reason magic damage is preferred over ranged. The other one is that they hit under armor, which can be valuable as well. So magic damage is preferred, and you don't have to worry about, for the most part, unless it's provided by the opposing summoner, you don't have to worry about running into a void, running into a reflect, something like that. Those are very popular in your normal battles because there's so much. Everybody wants to go magic damage, right? So you use things like reflect to counter it, but you're not going to have that here most of the time. So magic damage becomes better. And then when you're ordering those, so yes, we want magic in front of range, but how do you order your magic characters? Your higher attackers, the more attack damage they have, the further toward the back they go. The more health they have, the further toward the front they go. So that's simple enough until, okay, what happens when you run into a card? You're comparing two cards, and one has more attack and more health because maybe it's a higher mana card. It's a balancing act. There's not a right or a wrong answer. And okay, if it's got 2 extra attack and 3 more health, which way does it go? You never know. And sometimes it's going to come down to RNG on how the turns fall, which one would have been better. Don't stress over it too much, but if it's got a lot more health and just a little more attack, then put it towards the front. But that's kind of what you're factoring in there. And then it's all about having the most possible stats, putting them in the right order, and then using your summoner to either boost those stats or counter your opponent. So we can kind of see a little bit of both as we go forward here. Well, let's kind of look at the stats first, because in general, cards that have no abilities or fewer abilities are now going to become more valuable, because when Splinterlands builds these cards, they have kind of like a hidden point system, an internal point system that they use to try and keep things balanced. Speed is worth so many points. Health is worth so many points. Different types of damage are worth their points. Abilities are worth their points. And they kind of add everything up to reach whatever their target point total is. And that determines that they kind of use that to balance the cards and keep them even. So if cards have lots of points invested in their abilities, they're probably not going to be as good here. And then let's take an actual look at that. So let's jump in, and I'll take myself off the screen for the rest of this video. You don't need to see me. High Priest Darius is actually a fairly underrated card. This is a card that I like in normal battles and I hate in Back to the Basics. And this is just kind of giving you an example of how abilities can impact things. He's got some nice abilities. Resurrect is very, very powerful, especially on a life squad where you've got all that armor. A high magic attack with blast and weaken is a very nice combination. Obviously, in Back to Basics, you now lose all of these, and you have a 10 mana card with 4 attack, 2 speed, and 6 health. That is not very good. So unless you have max mana where you don't really care about the mana cost, this is a terrible card for Back to the Basics, because you don't have good stats. A lot of its points are invested in its abilities. Whereas, on the other end of the spectrum, I will show you guys my MVP. Let's go find him real quick. He is Peaceful Giant. Peaceful Giant is absolutely great in this rule set because He has no abilities. He has no attack. He has very little speed. Pretty much all of his points are invested into health. 5 mana, 17 health. That is very, very efficient. He is the tank I absolutely love to use. And you don't have any sort of oppress that can counter him. So oppress deals double damage to cards that have no attack. There's no summoner as of right now that gives oppress. So oppress cannot be on the board. So Peaceful Giant is very good at taking damage. Now he doesn't, I mean, having speed to dodge would kind of be nice. You can run a similar thing with Almo. Actually at level 1, Almo is a card I would kind of like a little better. He's a little faster, and at level 1 he's got more health for only 2 more mana. So Almo can be a very solid card, a very similar card that's got a dodge chance with that. But I like using those cards that have no attack. Because the reality is, a lot of times your tank does not get to attack in this rule set, because everybody's focus firing on the tank, right? And there's no support, there's no like healers to help heal the tank back up, unless you're running Kitty, and that would actually be after the first turn, anyways. There's no support to help reduce damage, incoming damage. You don't have things like shield or void, unless it's provided by a summoner that can help mitigate damage. So if you use a high damage melee attacker, a lot of times they just don't have the health or the speed to even get attacks off. So the way I kind of avoid even messing with that is just not using somebody like Peaceful Giant that doesn't even have any attack to begin with. So he's going to be able to absorb the maximum amount of damage and allow everybody else behind him to get a couple shots off. So this is a card I absolutely really like. So let's go into some battles and we can actually see, let's see Peaceful Giant in action here. This is one of my first battles. And you can see I've stuck Peaceful Giant up front. I didn't have any more mana, so I put the chicken in the second spot. And then I just loaded up as much magic damage as I could, and I used Valnamore as a summoner to boost my magic attack, boost my speed, boost my health, and it was a very solid card. You can, again, that's basically, there's 2 different strategies with what you use for your summoner. We'll go 2 times speed here, get this boosted up a little bit. You can either synergize with your own squad to try and boost their attack, or maybe boost their health or survivability or something, or you can try to counter what your opponents are going to do. And you're going to see that next, using things like Mimosa, using things like Deep Swimmer, using we're going to see Ouster as well, who can kind of counter things. So either amplifying your own damage or your own survivability, or countering the others, which I know it's kind of what you're doing all the time, but it's a little simplified here with no abilities. So here's Mimosa. Mimosa is a great summoner here, as we'll kind of let this run for a second. But I talked about how your tank a lot of times can't survive. So let's look at this real quick before he dies. Chain Golem actually is going to get his attack off, but you can see how it's possible that he may not have even gotten an attack. If Soulstorm had magic attack instead of ranged, Chain Golem doesn't even get to attack. So Chain Golem is normally one of the best tanks in the game, but when you come to this rule set, I'd rather have Peaceful Giant. But anyways, Mimosa is one of the best summoners here because counters magic and counters range, and that's mostly what you're going to see. I don't really like using melee here. So you've even seen some of these battles where they put a melee in the second spot, third spot, wherever. A lot of times they're going to miss their first attack. The only time I really like doing that is if you've got, like, okay, let's say you're putting a chicken up front to absorb a couple hits, and then your melee attacker can move in, and you're feeling pretty confident that your chicken's going to die before you get to your first melee attack. But I don't really like melee attackers, and most people aren't going to use melee attackers unless it's like melee can attack from anywhere or melee only. I think melee only in this rule set is brutal, but because you don't have your sneak, you don't have your opportunity, you're not going to have lots of melee attack. It's going to be ranged or it's going to be ranged or magic, and Mimosa counters magic, counters range, so a very good counter there. On to one of the best summoners in the game, regardless, but takes a step up in Back to the Basics, because there's not a good way to counter Jotun other than with a summoner. Now Deep Swimmer will help counter. We're going to see Deep Swimmer here in just a second. because we're gonna double this up. Sorry I sound funny. I still am not feeling the greatest. Let's deal with it, guys. Okay. But the blast basically increases your damage by 50%. Unfortunately, you can't use snipe to target somebody in the middle or anything like that, but blast is going to increase your damage. The ranged attack is going to increase your range damage, obviously. So those two combined just really ramps up the damage output, and it's hard to deal with. The only real downside is you have to use ranged instead of magic. I mean, you don't have to, but you're going to get more bang for your buck using range instead of magic. Range cannot attack. You see right here, range gets to the front. The magic is at the front as well, but it's on their side. You've got, even though it's 3-on-2 in terms of attackers, it's 2-on-2. But even though the one could not attack, there's still so much damage out there with that blast. So that really helps quite a bit there. So the counter to Jotun would be something like this. Now, this is not against the Jotun, but he still works very well. So if you feel like you can predict what your opponent's going to run, whether it's ranged or run magic, or you just want to gamble on it, Deep Swimmer is very good if you're expecting ranged. So two things. As you can see, the return fire right there is just destroying the other squad. Returning that damage is just brutal. And I mean, if they go ranged and you go Deep Swimmer, it's gonna be tough for them. So, and then you also add the armor on top of it. They have to get through all that armor. So you're adding extra health essentially that they have to get through, plus you're returning some of their damage. And again, if they go all ranged, you predict correctly, it is just so good. It works even better against Jotun because it will return the blast damage as well. And that blast damage can kind of be weak, but you're still hitting the return fire on that. So that can be very good. Good there. And then we'll show one more here the opposite way. So if you're expecting magic, you could go something like Ouster here. So running magic against Ouster, not going to work very well. And up top here, you can also see they use two different strategies in terms of how they order their characters. Their monsters here. I don't know. Apparently the summoners decided they wanted to take the day off there. But up here, we've got the Jin who's behind Mermaid Healer. And he has ordered it in attack. So he's put his higher attackers toward the back. I would actually put the Jin up a little higher because he's got all that extra health. So on the bottom, we have Prismatic Energy, who had more attack than Undead Priest. But because it had all the extra health, put Prismatic Energy up front. I like that order a little bit better. Now, in this case, it was because there was such an extreme difference in health on those two examples. I like going with the more health toward the front to be able to absorb a little bit more damage, so you keep the extra attack in there for longer. When it's closer together, it's hard to say. I mean, when you've got one extra attack but two extra health, which order do you go? There's no way to know until you get into the battle which one was going to be the right choice. It depends on RNG and how the attack orders happen to fall and how the exact damage counts happen to fall. And again, there's no right or wrong choice there. But when you have all that extra health, I do like adding the higher health up there in front, putting that tank a little bit higher. So hopefully that makes sense. I tried to go through it relatively quickly, so it's not a 25-minute video. And because just talking here for 10 minutes makes me want to go way back down in bed, if we're being honest. So that's why I haven't been live streaming, because I've got like I don't know if it's like strep throat or what it is, but it's got me feeling awful, and I feel like I'm gonna die talking for 10 minutes, so I can't do a 2-hour stream. But those will come back. Maybe, I don't know. I was hoping to do tomorrow, and now I'm doing this 10-minute video, and it's kind of making me question whether I should have scheduled a stream for tomorrow. But that's what I've got scheduled here. I'll keep you guys updated on Discord. That's the best place to find out where and when I am streaming, because I do stream on both YouTube and Twitch. So go check me. Go join my Discord. There's a schedule. Check and see when I'm streaming. I hope to be back soon. Thank you guys so much. I'm getting off here so I can shut up and make everybody happy. You guys have a great night.